You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, and welcome out there in podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, a podcast where two old friends get together and talk about movies, influences that affected the movie, and then things that that movie affected, other movies, other things in society, other things. We talk about a lot of stuff. If you are finding us for the first time, thank you so much. And we hope you enjoy it and you'll come back and see us and rate us, review us, star us, subscribe, do all those kind of fun things. If you are a returning listener / viewer, thank you for coming back and still stay in touch with us. My name is David. I'm here with my good friend Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hello, David. How goes it out there in Cyberland?
It goes. It is cyberific out here.
Yes.
It's so interesting. I've started listening to a few more podcasts and different ones, and then, you always end up comparing it to us. I'm going, what do they do different? How are they doing it? How do they modulate it? That sort of thing. Is it scripted? Is it not? What are they doing different?
Yeah. I listened to a bunch of different ones too, and some of them are so professional. I'm like, oh my God, they sound great. But then I'm like listening to another one that's like us, that's unscripted, and I'm more interested in it.
I'm the same way. I tend to like the ones that take their time and do something unplanned, rather than you can tell they're reading from such a set script every time and doing the same kind of thing. But then again, there is like the Lily one I listened to, Buffy and the Art of Storytelling. I like the fact that she falls into this rhythm every single podcast. So it kind of gives it, I guess, a listening rhythm. You kind of go, okay, here's her blurb about what this podcast is. Okay, here's her blurb about no spoilers, I promise. And she uses the same verbiage every time, so you kind of get used to that. But then her ad libs and details, the meat of it seems less scripted.
Yeah, sometimes you crave the regular.
Right.
I mean, that's why my introduction and your introduction is pretty much the same almost every week until we start getting near the end and rambling.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the beginning, as we were doing now. What have you been up to? What have you been doing?
Oh, man. I have been diving deep into treasure troves of obscurity. The first, I watched two movies. One was in 1973. It was classified as folk horror, so I had my Wicker Man vibe going. It's called Blood on Satan's Claw.
Okay, then. Never even heard of that title. So
yeah,
all
there
right.
it is right there. See?
Blood on Satan's Claw, a chill-filled festival of horror.
It's not. It's kind of boring.
It's not.
It's not a Hammer movie, even though it's English. It was put out by something that starts with a T, like Trigon or something. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. There's no one in this movie that you're going to remember. The only person I remembered was an extra heavy set bald guy that was a pirate from Swiss Family Robinson.
Oh, okay.
That's how obscure it was. And I mean, it had its moments. It basically this hippie-esque farmer, even though it's set in the 17th century and they're wearing period clothing, their hairstyles still look like the 70s. And he discovers a skull in his land that he is plowing. And the skull has what looks suspiciously like a real live eyeball in it and some fur. And it turns out it's Satan's skull, and he has unearthed it, and slowly the children of the community become Satan worshipers, and they get what the movie used to or was originally entitled Satan's Skin, which is a patch of fur. on their bodies somewhere.
And that is
And,
Satan's
yeah.
skin. That's the mark
Mhm.
of the
And
beast.
there's
or
rape
whatever.
and there's sacrifice and basically what you would expect. It's not that good. Second from that, though, I went about a decade further into Australia and what they
Mhm.
call Ozploitation. Have you ever heard that term?
Exploitation, like down under.
Yeah.
It's our version of horror.
I'm thinking it came about shortly after Mad Max, because this movie came out in 1982, about
Oh,
3 years later.
okay.
It's called Next of Kin.
Mhm.
And it's a little better. It's moody. It definitely creeped me out in places, but it's still kind of slow. And it's about a woman that inherits her mother's old folks home.
Oh, well, that can be scary just alone in premise there.
Yeah, I mean, she has a big house out in the middle of nowhere because it's Australia, and she takes care of a bunch of old people, and murder and mayhem ensue.
Mm.
But anyway, I mean, nothing much to report. Just some little gems I thought I would point out to the folks out there in case they want to watch one of them.
Well, for those of you who are listening to us and not watching YouTube, you need to jump into the YouTube just to see the poster of Satan's bloody claw thing, because it has the most catchphrases I've ever seen on a poster. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different catchphrases on that one
A
thing.
living nightmare of black magic, unspeakable evil, bad things are happening. Chill-filled
The ancient
festival
curse that haunts the earth's memory. It's like we had 5 ad guys and they could not think of enough things to say about this. But
and
there you
because
go.
everybody reads posters and don't look, instead of looking at the image.
Yeah, of course. But that's good.
So that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to, good sir?
2 different things. I've got 2 this week too. One, I've started doing some research on some formulaic science fiction, or looking at science fiction and some movies that aren't on our list but might be, and different stuff, and just started kind of doing a search online, and ended up hitting 3 that we've mentioned in several podcasts. We've not done the movies yet, but they probably will end up on our list sooner or later. But started with Logan's Run, and I was going, okay, where did this come from? But did a little research on Logan's Run and the production, and some of the design elements of it and everything else. But that led to Day of the Triffids, which
that was on Amazon for a while.
yeah, and that's a novel that I'd read even before I'd seen the movie, and remember that. But I haven't seen that movie in decades, so that might be one that we'd want to add on there.
I would love to. I've actually been tempted to just watch it because it's on Amazon.
Yeah, I might end up watching it just anyway. And then Earth versus the Flying Saucers, which kind of tied it back to what you talked about a couple of weeks ago with Harryhausen and everything else. And was kind of interesting because he did, all of the effects in that. But looking into those genres themselves, and vastly diverse genres right there, but interesting. And then I think I sent it to you, I watched an almost 90-minute review of Bly Manor that this girl did online. And
You
she
did
did
send
this,
it to me.
she did this YouTube kind of a review of the entire series, comparing it to the first season of Haunting. And also she had done an interview with Mike Flanagan. So it's spiced with his actual comments, which was awesome. And learned some things that I didn't know about the production of it, but also just reinforced some really cool stuff about it. But you just reminded me of it a few minutes ago, because you said folk horror, or classified as folk horror. And she was talking about how she preferred Bly Manor to Hill House, although in her opinion, Bly Manor scared her more, because she's not a jump scare kind of person. She's a very ominous feel, dread, cerebral kind of horror. and she was going, and people have suggested I watch other movies like, and she went through like 5 movies, and every time it cut to a clip from him, she would give some like instant reaction, like da da da, probably not, da 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 da, and then she go, Midsommar, oh hell no, I'm not watching that. And I was going, oh, she should really watch that.
Oh, she should, because that's
Yeah.
not a jump scare movie at all.
No, if she likes that kind of dread, something bad's coming and
Right.
we don't know, Midsommar is perfect for that. You know?
Or the one he did before that, Hereditary. Yeah.
See, I've
yeah.
still not watched it, and I keep seeing it and stuff.
Just
This
wait. We'll
Wicked,
probably do it next year.
Wicked and the Dead that I want to watch, the Mike Abbott movie.
I keep waiting for it to come out. It's not out on Shudder yet, but it keeps saying coming soon. So as soon as it comes, I'm gonna watch it.
And it's in like on a ton of lists from 2020 that people say best horror movie of the year or whatever. So I want to watch it, but people who watch it say blah 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 Hereditary. So Hereditary must be a scary movie. So
Hereditary is terrifying, and it's terrifying on many levels, and it's got a shit ton of influence and stuff in it. I mean, you will see a bunch of movies in it.
All right. Well, we may have to watch it then. I mean, speaking of shit ton of influence, boy, that's a good segue to this week's, huh?
It actually, you started the segue earlier when you mentioned movies that make you dread, because this is one of those kind of movies I think you and I have always discussed as being that. I mean, it's very cartoonish when you watch it originally, but it's one of those that you think about a lot later, and like, what would you do?
This movie, to me, defies all of my movie precepts, because there's so many things in this movie that should not work, but do. There's so many things that violate what I would like about a horror movie, or would like about any kind of movie. And yet, for this movie, it worked. Like, one of my big notes is the music in this movie sucks, but it's so oddly good in places. I mean, when it goes into that whole da 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 da, and you're seeing them, it's just it's funny, but at the same time, you're going, this is just really kind of creepy. It's
even creepier after it's over, and you don't have that music. Yeah,
he hit such weird beats in this movie that are just right, and. Well, we'll get into it. I'll let you talk about it. But yeah.
What David is alluding to is our movie of the day, and that would be 1978's Dawn of the Dead by George Romero. This movie, it's really hard for me to even begin with this movie because this movie has probably affected me more than any other movie I can think of in history. It started a long-lived obsession with the zombie sub-genre of horror. Long before Kirkman was writing comic books and making The Walking Dead. He was probably in diapers when this movie came out. Another reason why it's a big movie for us is that we've already discussed its predecessor, Night of the Living Dead, which was hugely influential, and our third episode.
And also influential. That's where our podcast comes from.
Yeah, the name.
The name comes from that film. So
it does. It does. So let me give you a brief premise for those of you that have never seen this movie, which I have a hard time believing. Actually, there are a few people out there that don't like this movie specifically because of the gore. And that happened with my first viewing of this with someone I went with. Anyway, following the epidemic of zombies from Night of the Living Dead, we're basically in the middle of it, still going on with this film. We have a couple of Philadelphia SWAT team members. One of them knows a traffic reporter that works at a local news station. The 4 of them, including the traffic reporter's girlfriend, hijack the traffic helicopter and take off to survive on their own. They fly across the state of Pennsylvania and wind up in a shopping mall just outside of Pittsburgh, which is where most of this movie is set.
Mm-hmm.
And that is all I'm going to say. I mean, that's another premise of this movie that a lot of people really like is, wow, what would you do if you had rain of a shopping mall?
Mm-hmm.
This movie hits every trope with me. It's a small movie, small story, small cast, zombies, and trapped in a small location. Essentially, it's not that small, but it becomes small, really.
Well, I think what's interesting is it is so large and they're still trapped.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched a documentary on the making of it too, which I'd never seen, ironically, in 40 plus
Which
years
one?
or whatever.
Document of the Dead.
It might have been. Had a
That's a
lot of
long
Romero. Had a lot of Romero in it, talking about the filming and what happened and
Was it?
everything
Did
else.
it have a lot of behind the scenes?
Yes, a lot.
Okay, that's document, I think.
Yeah, a lot of stuff I'd never seen of, even Savini doing the makeup and
Right,
interviews with
right.
him and all kinds of stuff. And one of the phrases from it was, this place is so brightly lit, people forget it's actually a prison,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was an interesting angle on it. Yeah, it does hit all of your tropes and also all of those ones that we both kind of like of becoming a microcosm of the macrocosm that's existing outside. There's a lot of social commentary in this that some of it's in your face, but some of it is really subtle, which is great. I mean, I have to say, watching it again, because I've probably watched this movie a dozen times, probably not as many as you, I'm sure, but this is probably the best zombie movie ever made. It really is, even since then.
I mean, there are a lot of great modern zombie movies out there, whether they move slow or fast, it doesn't matter. But none of them will resonate with me more than this movie ever.
I agree. That's a good way of saying it too. And, even in this documentary, somebody, one of the producers, I think, or somebody was talking about the fact that, Romero did invent the modern zombie with Night of the Living Dead. And then this is him coming back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And they had great success, I think, in the production of it and what he wanted and getting his vision out there. Again, it defies the laws of movie making in so many ways and still works. And it just astounds me watching it. I'm going, how did he get away with that? That works. This editing is horrible and it still works for me in places, sort of thing.
Well, and there's times where he almost went into a different subgenre or a different genre. I mean, there's times where it's comedic, and he always said that you're big on fake blood, and this blood looks like paint. It looks terrible. But and Tom Savini hated it, but Romero said, "No, I want it. I'm making a comic book."
Oh yeah, yeah.
So he's doing a comic book, he's doing a comedy, and he's doing social commentary, and he's doing horror. Like 4 different things right there.
When did you first see this movie? Because I'm sure you've seen it 7,000 times, but
maybe 700. I did not see this movie upon release. I would have only been 13. But I did see it around 1982 as a midnight movie at the Kingston 4 in Knoxville, Tennessee. I took Chris Tetzlaff to see this movie. And the minute the husband bites a chunk out of his wife's arm in the tenement building, she was out. She was like, I'm going to go watch Rocky Horror Picture Show. I'll see you when it's over. And she went to the theater next door.
That is so funny. It's so weird because, you know, you and I have shared this story, I know, but I saw this movie, and I'm believing this was for the first time, but it was at UT. I had a
Okay.
screening at
Mhm.
UT, and on campus, and it wasn't midnight, but it was a late night showing. It was like 9 or 10 o'clock, and there was like I was probably in the fifth or sixth row back, and there was a huge group of people like on the second and third row. I mean, probably 10, 15 people. And they were talking all during the credit sequence, all during the whole opening and everything else. And then when they get to the tenement and they start doing the kills, they're yelling at the screen. And I'm thinking, oh my God, are they going to do this the whole movie? This is going to suck. I'm going to get so pissed off.
Nah.
And when he
George will take care of
bites,
it.
when he bites into her neck and it just squirts everywhere, this guy stood up and goes, "Oh, fuck no." And they all just ran out of the theater. There were like 12 people said, "Oh, hell no." And so it was quiet for the rest of the movie. I enjoyed it, but it was hilarious.
I thought you were just going to say it got deathly quiet and they never spoke again because,
No, no, he
it's a
stood up and
good
said,
sobering moment.
It is. I like and it's iconic. You know, it is. You remember that shot from the movie. You remember the headshot right before it. You know, which is so it's a double gore blast, right
Which was
there.
actually a test for Peter's head in the original ending where they were going to have him kill himself.
Mhm.
So they were like, we've got this exploding head. Let's stick it in here somewhere.
Let's keep it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that we both had experiences where people were offended or shocked enough to leave the theater.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She was up and out.
And I'm sure it was that way at the time when it was released. But see, I didn't see it. I didn't see it in 78. I think I saw it in 80 or 81 as a student film.
Yeah. I saw it like 4 years later. I was dying to see it. Dying to see it. Just from probably reading about it in Fangoria.
And since again have seen it several times on VHS, on digitally and everything else. And there's
still lots of edits of this movie. George Romero has made the comment that you could release 10 different versions of this movie on DVD if you wanted to.
Interesting, because and I was going to comment on that, and several of my notes comment on that. Of I didn't know going into this watch. I watched it online, and it was like 2 hours and 35 minutes long. I went, I do not remember this movie being this long. And there were entire sequences. I was going, I never saw this. I've seen this movie like a dozen times. I have never seen this scene.
Yeah.
How can I be seeing something for the first time 40 years later?
And there's cuts that and they don't happen. And you're like, wait a minute. Like the scene where they cut to Roger at the transport station and he flips the body back in the chair and there's blood on his face. It's like a jump cut. Instead, they cut to the police looting and filling the van up. And the one of the cops is Joe Polito, I think's his name. And he ended up going on to be the lead in Day of the Dead.
Yep.
And I never even knew he was in this movie because that part was not in the version we saw in theaters.
I had forgotten that. Yeah, basically the only the sequence I remember is the guy saying, "Hey, can we come with you?" "Oh, we can't." "Oh, let's get to the boat." "Hey, do you have any cigarettes?"
Cigarettes. Yeah.
And that's basically it.
That's it.
The goofy chewing gum guy.
Yeah. Instead, they've got Franny filling up the helicopter with gas, and then he goes in and eventually does that thing where he leans the guy in the chair, which is the cut I always remembered.
Yeah, and the whole sequence of holding her at gunpoint and wanting to steal the helicopter, but then talking out of it when they arrive. And I was going, I've never seen this scene before. What is happening?
Yeah, it's totally new.
Yeah.
And there's lots of mall stuff that's just, I don't know, excess footage that they just kind of added.
Yeah, the pacing kind of drags in that sequence, and I understand why George would have cut it down. Like there's a double montage there with them celebrating the decadence of the mall kind of thing. There's a lot more of the scene with Franny and what's his name? Steven,
Steven.
in the restaurant,
Yeah.
with the ring and all that. And I swear, maybe I'm imagining that because I started saying, I've never seen this, but I do not remember Roger going out with the champagne over his friend's body. I don't remember seeing that ever until this version.
I think he does, but I think it's shorter. I don't think it's pronounced.
Okay.
Like he's there with it, and then you realize where he's at instead of him actually going there. Or
So
whatever.
why were there so many versions? Why were there so many edits or whatever?
Well, I guess I'll go into the history a little bit.
Yeah.
The reason this movie got made mainly is because of Dario Argento. Another reason why you should like him.
Yes. Well,
he was a huge fan of Night of the Living Dead. And when he got wind that George was considering a sequel, he flew George to Italy and said, right here, uninterrupted. And he basically put George in a room for 3 weeks until the script was done. He did not bother him. He read it. He liked it. He said, I'll get you funding for this if you let me do the European cut. And he said, sure. So
meaning re-edit his own cut of it?
Right.
Okay.
And George was like, I have free reign because Dario's doing this. I just let him take the European cut. And basically, this is what happened. There ended up being this extended cut that you saw. George didn't like it, so he cut it down to 2 hours. And that's the version that's his preferred version, one that we grew up with. However, Dario thought there was a little too much comedy in it. So he took some of that out to make it scarier. So like George always wanted to do a pie fight scene because someone had mentioned it in Night of the Living Dead. But in Night of the Living Dead, they didn't have access to any pies. In a mall, they did. So he put the pie fight scene in there, which is very funny.
Ironic that that's what Sam wanted to have in Evil Dead, couldn't have it, so he had it in the Evil Dead 2, the remake he did.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the reasons why there are so many different versions of this. I don't know what some of the other ones are he's referring to, but he said there's probably 10.
So is this what is referenced when I saw it a little bit in the documentary or whatever? This is what's referenced when the movie called Zombies with an I, no E. Mm-hmm. That's Dario's version of this movie.
It is.
Oh, okay.
And then Fulci did a movie called Zombie 2, which had absolutely nothing to do with this movie, except for the fact that it was gory and had slow dead people walking around in it. So,
well, I like Dario. I mean, I like his movies. I think he's the, I definitely think he's the Italian Hitchcock. I like opera. I think Bird with Crystal Plumage is probably my favorite, or maybe Suspiria, one of the two. So I like
Suspiria's high up there with a lot of folks.
Yeah, and I like what he. I like his style. I like what he does. And it's interesting. Like I never knew he had this many. He had this much influence on this movie. I mean, he's basically the reason for it.
He is. And George Romero said he's never had more freedom making a movie than he did with this one. He said no one ever bothered him, ever.
Well, it's because your producer trusts you, that kind of thing. That's a good thing, as opposed to a studio breathing down your neck going, are you done? Are you done? Are you done? And
it was filmed. I can't remember the total. I think the total length of filming was 5 weeks, but they had to shut down for 3 weeks. Actually, they didn't shut down. They stopped filming at the mall for 3 weeks because of Christmas, and they didn't want to have to take Christmas decorations down and hang them back up. So they shot the scenes in like the tenement building and in the news studio during those 3 weeks.
And I also saw that and they did night photography. So this was an actual functioning open mall that they would come into at night. after it was closed and shoot, and then have to clean everything up and make it good in the morning.
Yeah. And the lights and the music would come on at a certain time, and they had to go with it because no one could figure out how to turn it off. It's hilarious. But I mean, there's so many great things about this movie that I love because of logic. Like, I used to obsess over this when I was watching the movie. The fact that they're behind the scenes in like the boiler room, control room of the mall, and yet there's something in there. And then you realize it's a security guard zombie.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Or when they're running around in J.C. Penney's and one of the mannequins ends up grabbing one of them. And it turns out that was a maintenance man. He had the tool belt with the screwdrivers and stuff. So, I mean, all of that made sense. It wasn't just a jump scare.
No, what I liked about the research I did was Romero was really open to everybody creating your own zombie or doing your own thing with the zombies. And from what I understand, that's what Nicotero did, at least the first couple of seasons of Walking Dead, was work with extras and everything else about develop your own zombie. You know, how does he walk? How does he move? What's his posture?
Stuff. Yes.
You know, that sort of thing. And it was really cool in this one documentary because he was talking, it had a lot of people who were the extras. Like, it had the nurse, and she still goes to conventions, and people come up, you were the nurse, da, 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 da. You know, or the fat guy in the, you know, that
falls in the pool.
Fountain.
Yeah. The fountain.
But yeah, you mentioned the maintenance guy is one, the Hare Krishna, of course. By the way, my notes are right on that. And I go, that is one persistent Hare Krishna zombie, because he gets all the way upstairs to their thing. He is very persistent.
I know. And I was like, I often wondered why he knew she was up there.
Yeah, I had an issue with that. I've got that in
mind. She does say, Stephen, in the stairwell. So he heard her then, but he knew to go in that door before that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's, there were. Well, I'm not going to jump on that logic train because I just go, yeah, that works. I guess. But yeah, there are so many characters, you know, the nun, the guy in the jersey who's sitting right in front of Fran when she's on the other side of the JCPenney window, and everything.
The guy with the gun that takes Roger's gun and
is
like looking at it in the face, and later on you see him, he still got it.
Yeah.
And he ends up changing it for another gun at the end.
Yeah, he changed it for the M16 at the end. Yeah. And there's you know, even Stephen and his developing that weird walk and having the finger pointing, but not even with the gun still dangling from it. All that he improvised. That was not in the script. Romero didn't coach him on that. Romero talks about, you know, Stephen developed all this, and we just went, yeah, keep it. I don't know how you're doing that.
Romero went on to say he was the best zombie he's ever had too. And
well, he used him so well too. That great cut of the elevator opening, and he's there already zombied. The way he would gesture and, you know, and do the, you know, kind of trying to talk,
and he's like spazzing.
Yeah.
And doing that weird twist, and his foot is always bent under.
Oh yeah, always backwards and bent under. And
I'm like, how is he walking?
It's like the Steve Rowe zombie, you know. I mean, he's able to twist his ankle all the way back around. But
it's ironic that he is the best zombie because he is the worst character. I hate him. Everything about him makes me want to hit him.
Oh yeah, if he wasn't the pilot.
Asshole.
Yeah, if he wasn't the pilot, he has no right being in this movie.
Right. And he's got the stupidest move of all when he comes out of that shed and does that body slam into that zombie.
Yeah.
I have made fun of that for 40 years.
He does the body slam and falls at the same time and almost knocks himself out. And you're like going, what?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. You don't throw yourself at a zombie.
Yeah. No, it was, yeah. But okay, well, we're kind of talking about, but scenes that you remember.
That's fine. Scenes. You were talking about things that are weird editing wise that shouldn't work that do work. One of them is the little comedy right there when Steven can't shoot, and he usually takes 2 shots before Rogers pops in, knocks his gun up, and then does it in one.
Yeah. The homage, a key for me, and an homage to Night is the scene where they're flying over, still in search of somewhere to land, and the National Guard and all the rednecks are, having zombie field day kind of thing.
Like the first movie.
Yeah, shooting them in the field, and there's 3 of them, and it's almost like a duck hunt kind of thing. Drinking the beer, that whole sequence I remember.
I just remember Steve Rowe loving that scene where that guy's like, I got him. Nope, I missed.
Yeah.
Got him. Nope,
got him.
Missed. And you just see these little silhouettes on the horizon, one of them's going to fall down eventually.
Yeah. And you almost hear that ding kind of sound you expect from a shooting gallery kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Steven's appearance, I will always remember. I think that's great and very
with the elevator.
Yeah, at the elevator.
Pure drama. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that face.
Wait, it's Roger, Steven, Franny, and Peter, right?
Correct.
Peter's transformation, I think people will always remember. It's a
in the tenement.
No,
building?
When he zooms out.
No, Peter doesn't zoom out. Peter's the big black guy. You're thinking of
Roger.
Yes,
No.
you're thinking
Steve.
of Roger. You're thinking of this.
Yes. Yeah. That scene is great. The tenement, you're right about the tenement, the whole tenement scene, the whole thing, not the stuff on the roof with the bandits running out, which some of that I don't remember either. I think there were some edits in there that I didn't see in previous years, but the scene in definitely the bite on the neck and the arm, the head blowing up, the kind of introduction of both of those characters of Roger and Peter, and the smoking and them talking to each other, and then having to go down and clear the room from the one-legged priest weird creepiness, which all of that is just to your point earlier, that's a dread feel in that scene. We've had this action of shoot everything, and now we've gotten a little lull, but then it gets really like, we need to not be here. I got a friend who's got a helicopter.
It's
okay,
like
good.
The top of the building, the way the movie starts, is cartoonish. It's like shoot 'em up, bam, bam, bam. People getting shot. They're running around. He's having this conversation with this nice young SWAT guy that gets a bullet right in the center of the head.
Oh, yeah.
Like instantly.
Boom. As soon as it
and
happens.
You're like, what the fuck is going on? And then they get inside, and you've got whatever his name is that's going crazy and shooting everybody and using racial slurs. And he obviously knows Roger, and Peter's watching it from the periphery, and Roger's trying to get him to calm down, and Peter ends up killing him.
Oh yeah.
And Roger sees it, and then when they're in the basement, he's like, you're not the only one down here.
Yeah, that was a great
line. They
line.
have that conversation. I know he was your friend, but I had to do something. And that's when they start, I guess that's when the priest comes in. He's like from Trinidad or something. He's got one leg. And says,
and that's creepy. That was to me, the key I got from that was a where's my notes? That was a William Friedkin moment. It reminded me of something Friedkin would do, of using someone who's actually had an amputation or whatever, and just giving it that creep factor feel for no reason.
Right.
We don't play it up. We don't make a comment about it or anything. it just creeps you out because it's unusual. It's odd. It throws you off. And then they suddenly go into, they've been keeping them down here. And you're like, oh, no,
that's the
no,
transition
man.
I was trying to get to. You go from like cartoon violence to like this horror of the basement, and it's where they've been putting them all because they didn't want to kill them again. They were already dead. They just kind of shoved them all down in there.
And says so much about the two of them and their characters and their development. You know, even when the guy kind of busts in and looks around, he goes, "You guys okay down here?" He goes, "Yeah, we got it under control, man." And everything else goes, "Jesus." And then the second little dude who comes up and then just goes away.
And he's out. Yeah.
It's just great. The whole news scene. I love the new. I see you've got it on your background right now, but that whole sequence sets this movie up so well.
Yeah.
There's
and that's
panic,
Romero
there's
right
paranoia. Yeah. And that is the man himself.
Mm-hmm.
But there's panic, there's paranoia. There's a lot of detail that's thrown in and a lot of supposition and ambiguity, things thrown. It's just kind of, he says, people are going to make up their own reasons why this happened. Who cares? It is what it is. And I'm trying to remember this. Well, the mall, what else?
Oh, here you go. This one.
The dialogue scene of the mall, which is
there's no more room in hell.
Yeah. Of course, a filmmaker who does a good job, you know, suckers you in, and so you start empathizing with these characters and everything else. I was a little bit of Stephen, when the guys broke in. I was the same way, going, damn it, you're ruining everything. It's all out. We had this thing taken care of.
You're talking about when Stephen and Peter are going to lock the gates.
No.
Because
after
the motorcycle
that.
guys are.
Oh, yeah. No, they're going to just kind of watch what's happening, and they're saying, okay, we'll just let them have the place for a while and then they'll go away. It's fine. But instead, he gets pissed off because he says it's our
jealous
stuff and starts shooting them, which means they know people are there. So now they're going to fight.
Yeah.
He goes, okay, now we got a war, man.
Yeah. You know? I mean, he lives up to his character's ass being an ass. He ends up screwing up the whole fucking movie.
But I kind of agree with him going, no, man, it pisses me off. They shouldn't be there. You know? Yeah. We worked hard. We built a wall, you know?
And I mean, it's like Peter said, they're going to have 1,000 zombies. And that's like the only word, I think, the only time zombie has ever been used in like a movie, like a Romero movie that I recall anyway. He said, they're going to have 1,000 zombies to worry about. We don't have anything to worry about. Just let them come in.
Just let them have it. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think trying to just still doing scenes. I keep doing a lot. What are yours? I'm going crazy.
I mean, you've hit a lot of them. I mean, you've got the chaos at the news studio, to the weird shit out on the roof, to the creepy basement. But in between that and the mall, you've got them stopping at that place to fill the helicopter up. So you've got the crazy zombie that stands up on some crates to go towards Roger, who doesn't hear him because he's because the rotors are going, and he stands up a little too tall, and it just slices that zombie's head right off. And that's like a classic. I mean, even Nicotero does it now. But Savini was doing it then, trying to come up with creative ways of killing.
Yeah.
They said that whoever that extra stuntman was notorious for having a very low forehead.
Yes. Yeah.
But he doesn't in that. He looks like Herman Munster.
Yeah, they built that whole Frankenstein appliance. That was going to be one of my keys. Was this an ode to Frankenstein? You know?
Yeah, it does look like him, kind of. But that's also where one of my favorite scenes is when Peter goes in to the office to get the vending machine to work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. And he starts hearing something behind a door. And then that genuinely surprised moment when the door flies open and two kids come running out, which is the first time you've ever seen zombies run. Take that 28 days later. And that moment, I heard he did not know it was going to be kids, and that was genuine surprise on his part.
Oh, Ken Foree, or who?
Yeah,
the actor. Okay.
And so he throws the kids on the couch and shoots them all up. It's very much like Battle Royale. You don't even see squibs. They're just kind of like,
it's badly done.
And then he turns, and you've got one of the scariest zombies in the movie standing right there, coming.
Oh yeah, the one with the face all ripped off. Yeah,
very iconic. Yeah. And then what happens? Steven is going to be Joe Cool and shoot him from the other side. And so all of a sudden, somebody's shooting at Peter through a zombie.
Yep.
And that's one of my favorite moments, is when he goes out there and kicks him to the ground and puts that gun right in his face and says, "Scary, isn't it?"
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely a memorable scene. And I do think that was that had to be a key for the little girl in Walking Dead. The little girl zombie in the first
episode?
pilot, the first episode or whatever, because it reminds me of this scene a lot. So that's a huge
They're
key.
kind of in a salvage yard, I guess you would say. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just him, and he's still getting used to the whole situation of the way the world is the same way they are. And he doesn't expect a little girl to be a zombie, or a walker. But let's see what else for me. Oh, the machete to the head is definitely a memorable shot, if not scene.
It's just a classic Savini effect that looks so amazingly real.
Yeah, even when he twists it,
and the guy's holding the head so that he can pull it out. Yeah.
Of course, you and I have talked about before, but I know there are zombies around, but I just have to try this blood pressure machine right now. It's such a classic.
Well, and doesn't he, in the extended version, I think he tries it earlier and someone says, "No, man, come on, we got to do it." And so he wanted to do it earlier, and then he decides he's going to do it again later.
Yeah.
And
they
chew his arm off.
It's the motorcycle guy with the huge sombrero, and he's also the one carrying the mannequin like a love doll he's going to take with him. That's what he's taking,
Well, and it's the vandalism. You can see why it makes Steven mad, because it would make me mad too. They're like, "Hey, what are you going to watch on that?" "Oh, I don't know." And they just take a sledgehammer and just trash a television set.
Yeah. The lack of respect for our stuff, which also, again, goes to Romero's social commentary.
Right.
The three, because Roger had died by then. No, Steven.
Now, Steven didn't die till near the end because they end up having to escape. But Roger gets bit early on when they're putting the trucks in front of the doors.
Okay. So Roger had already died. So the three of them are now fairly possessive of this space. And it's now like theirs, which is this kind of commentary on what are we comfortable with? What do we want? What happens in an apocalypse? I still want my stuff. Yeah. I still want my protected home.
Well, I mean, that's a good segue. We'll talk a little bit about cast, but a good segue from scenes is the commentary he makes with this movie. I mean, the first movie, there was a huge racial commentary, even though Romero did not, or says he did not intend that to be the case, because the lead actor, Dwayne Jones, was a black man. And at first he's with a young white woman. But in this, a lot of the social commentary has to do with commercialism and what really is valuable.
Right. Whether it's friendship, whether it's dwelling or safety or security. I love the line about why do they come here? And it's because it's what they remember. It's what gave them something in life.
It's so empty. It's so vapid. It makes you go,
so vapid. Yes, very well said. And all walks of life. I think in the first movie, they basically wore like rags or shrouds or just a nightgown or whatever. The walkers were just kind of indistinct, except for the first guy in the suit.
Well, they were in the country, so they were probably coming from some funeral home or something. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But the statement in this is it is everybody, all ages, all all races, all occupations. And we're kind of coming here. And he kind of does the same thing. That diversity is still there with the motorcycle gang too. There's a lot of racial diversity in the bad guys, in the villains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see what you mean. And in the tenement scene. The tenement scene's got a lot of different ethnicities in it. Some that don't look realistic, like that one long-haired guy in the beginning that gets shot looks like he's got almost like shoe polish on his face. It's like a really heavy tan makeup. It does not look real. But obviously they were trying to make him look Hispanic.
Yes.
And then there's several black actors in that scene as well. That main bite that sent Chris Tetzlaff running is, between a black man and a black woman. And it looks real, man. It's like he's taking a bite out of a piece of cake.
Yeah, there are two, effects wise, there's some that are over the top. Like you said, the blood is very paint colored. Mm-hmm. It's not even the reddish Dario Italian blood. It's a very dull paint color.
It's opaque. It's not translucent like
right. But some of the squib effects are great.
Amazing.
The head explosion is great, but a lot of the head hits are really good. The front squibs and the back squibs just going all over the background are great. I love, who's the blonde guy? Peter?
The blonde guy's Roger.
Roger. No, I thought Roger was
Roger. Damn. When he gets bit, that's how I remember, because it's Peter screaming it. Roger, look out.
His bites are great. When he gets bit in the leg is great. When he gets bit on the arm, it's great. When he, the way he's bandaging himself up is great. And then the whole fingers in it. Oh, dude, the one zombie just goes, I'm going to, right. Oh,
it's just,
yeah.
I love when they're driving that car, that Sirocco, around the mall, and that's when that happens to him. He's hot wiring it when she grabs his leg and does that. I was going to go back to the commentary, but I wanted to say one thing first, is they didn't have any stuntmen for this movie. So all of a sudden Savini became a stuntman too, not just a makeup artist. It was like him and one other guy, and two of the biggest stunts went bad. One was when he went flying off the rail when he gets killed. He missed the boxes about halfway. So Savini ended up riding around in a golf cart for days because he couldn't walk. He could have broke his neck, but at least himself, he's okay. He lived long enough for me to meet him at Disney World.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, and then there was the other guy that swung on the flags.
Yeah, the guy with the sledgehammer.
That as well. It went way too far, and he ran into something or another. I heard.
You can tell because some of the stunt work does not work and doesn't work with continuity shot to shot, doesn't work with the structure, cheap tricks of like, oh, I'm going to show a truck drive by and then we're going to show a bunch of people just fall back and we get the impression that the truck hit them. No, not really. But I guess we're supposed to infer that. It doesn't look like, the sledgehammer itself has literally no weight. And you can tell he's pulling rubber. Yeah, he's pulling all of his hits on people, and they're just going, and falling. There's a lot of times where
that's all right. I still like it.
It seems like there's no force in the gunshots. It's just all across your front, and you just go, kind of thing. But still, it's one of those where I can point that out, but it still works for me.
Yeah. back to the commentary when we were talking about, you were saying, why do they come to this place? Doesn't Peter have a line where he says they're us?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's always been one of my biggest fascinations and tropes with zombies, is that whole metaphor of death is going to catch up with you, whether it be a zombie coming really slow or some illness like cancer. It's coming. And it's always coming. It's not ever not going to be coming. So I love that metaphor almost as much as I do the whole commercialism metaphor.
Yeah, the materialism in general, not just commercial, like it's treated, because he does comment on that, but that materialism,
yeah.
when it ends up showing how opulent they've made this little small, civil defense thing at the top of this mall. They've got, really Art Deco furniture and nice looking, crystal and everything they're drinking out of.
Stereo.
Yeah.
And what's funny is before they even have all that, when they're up there eating on boxes, either Peter or Roger's eating caviar out of a jar.
Oh yeah, out of a jar and drinking Jack Daniels.
And throwing it.
Yeah. But I also like the fact that Romero takes the time when he can to actually make the commentary. So, like at the beginning when they're having this, because they're essentially at a television station which is recording an interview, but the interview is going horribly wrong because there's so much panic, and everybody is kind of even throwing questions at the interviewer and everything else. But that whole comment about who are they, what should we be doing now? And the scientist is going, we've let it go too far. Because we are staying.
Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, and yes. I was getting ready to say that, but you got to me first with that.
Oh,
but he's
sorry.
essentially saying we've let it go too far, and we've had too much humanity. We've got to stop being caring about these people because they aren't people anymore.
Yeah, just burn them.
Yeah, they go up pretty quick. But also then later on, there's that other commentary when they're watching it on the news, and the guy with the eye patch is doing his big commentary, and he's the one that's essentially saying they are us, and these are not. No. These are not cannibals. These are creatures. Cannibals eat their own. They don't eat themselves. Kind of thing. And I thought that was a cool distinction of zombie trope that set it up forever from then on. Once a zombie has died and becomes a zombie, they don't bother you anymore. You're one of them now. They don't feed on you, even though you still have probably fresh meat, but no, you're dead now. Except it does bode the question of all Romero movies, which is it always ends in the gore fest where they're literally ripping people apart. And I'm going, okay, why wasn't there more injury on these zombies that are coming in? They do it later on, I assume, because I haven't seen his other movies other than Day. I haven't seen the last, 4, 5, and 6 or whatever they are. I haven't seen any of those.
Land is pretty good. It's got Dennis Hopper in it.
But more damage from what
rise.
Actually killed you, which is probably another zombie. You know what I mean? Like bitten bites and injuries and everything else. There's not that in this. Basically, we have people in blue makeup with red eyeliner on.
And Tom Savini said as well. He said he was new. He said the first movie was in black and white, and he was trying to make their skin look gray, and it looked too blue. And he said it was a mistake. Why you have blue zombies in this movie, basically.
Yeah. You end up getting used to it, and it becomes something. It's again one of those, the language of the filmmaker, and you kind of go, okay, I agree with it.
Well, but this to me is some of the best zombie making I've ever seen.
Oh yeah,
I've never seen a zombie look scarier than that.
Yeah, and it's tissue paper and latex. That's all it is.
That's all it is.
No appliances, no molds,
a little eyeshadow.
Yep,
that's it.
Yeah, it's great work.
It
really. Yeah,
I mean.
For those of you who can't see, we are referring to
that's Roger.
Rogers coming back as a zombie And we don't even see his death, which is amazing because it's white pillows, and I was really expecting it to blow
but you get
up
to see
his whole head off.
Stevens later, man, and he goes splat.
Oh, all over the wall, all over the wall.
And he's the one that you want to see his head blown off.
Now, while we're there, let me ask, because I think if this movie, you know, because they remade Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Did they remake this movie? They remade this movie, but they did it with fast zombies or whatever.
It's actually not a bad movie. It's not this movie. I would never even compare the two. They probably should have just gave it a different name. I mean, the only similarity is that they end up shopping mall. There's fast zombies. Ving Rhames is in it instead of Ken Foree.
Does the Franny character actually have a baby? She actually has her baby.
No, another character does.
Another character does.
The Fran character is more Sarah Polley, and she's great. And I think she's more than an actress. She was an actress in this movie. I would actually put that on our list to do. I just did not want to do them with this because there's too much influence in this movie to put another one on as a double feature. This movie needs its own episode.
Well, I throw this out as a thought because I was watching it this time. It occurred to me the friendship between Peter and Roger is great in this,
and it's instant because they didn't really know each other.
Right, but they have a camaraderie, and their scenes, those two actors are really strong. I was amazed that I have not seen, because I've seen Ken Foree in a couple of other things, but I've never seen the guy that plays Peter, I don't think, in any other, in anything else.
He makes an appearance in The New Dawn of the Dead, too. Small cameo.
But their scenes together are great. I love the scene where he goes, you know, in the truck is a great scene.
When he's all hyped up, like on caffeine.
Yeah. And he's going, now calm down, man, because you ain't talking about your life. You're talking about mine as well. And, and he's going, okay, yeah, I got it. I got this. You know,
it's when he left his bag. It's when he fucked up and leaves his bag in the truck. That's why he gets bit.
It's why he gets bitten, because he was, you know, playing macho cowboy and getting too much into it. Kind of thing. Right. But then even the scene after that, when he's tying it off and going, yeah, you got a lot more to do before you can afford to lose me, man. You know, that's a great scene. The whole scene between him when he's there going, you won't let me, you'll take care of me, right? In the end, you know, you'll take care of me, right? I don't want to, you know, that kind of thing.
Walk around like that.
Yeah, just the way he, you know, that was a great scene.
I know almost every line in this movie.
You should.
And the inflection. Chocolate man.
But there was a thought that occurred to me when I was watching it going, I wonder if they were doing a remake of this, if they would have tried to make that even a gay couple or a gay kind of attraction.
It would be okay if they had known each other longer. Yeah, it would be kind of ironic if they just both happened to be gay. But if they were a couple, yeah, that would be interesting.
Right, that would be interesting.
I mean, I know gay cops. I know gay firemen. So I just don't know two that were, but.
Yeah. There's
his name is Scott Reiniger, and he almost didn't get cast.
Oh, really?
Because he's so short.
Well, he is
Romero was really, really concerned that he was like a foot shorter than Ken Foree. And Reiniger got kind of mad and said, after the first few minutes of this movie, no one is going to remember that.
Yep.
Romero said, okay, and let him have the part.
Well, and it actually works. I mean, it's a Mutt and Jeff kind of, that's a key for me. It's a Mutt and Jeff kind of relationship. I love the scene right before the first assault when they're both leaning against the wall and he pulls out the cigar and puts it in and he's looking like this and Peter grabs his lighter and lights his cigarette for him and everything. And he goes, you ready? And he goes, whatever he said there about, yeah. And he goes, let's do this, you know.
Well, and there's another one where he goes, are we going to do this? He goes, I need lighter fluid.
That's it. Yeah, that was it. He goes, I need lighter fluid. Let's go. You know. It's just really good. And I thought it was interesting that their relationship is really strong and really good. And then the opposite is Franny and Steven. And their relationship deteriorates and gets bad.
It's almost like they're together because she's pregnant.
Right. Yeah, you don't get any chemistry between
There's no
the two.
love there. It doesn't.
And
you don't feel
no.
it at all.
As a matter of fact, I still question whether or not that's his girlfriend.
Or that he's gay, because he does give me a gay vibe. Yeah.
There is that, but also, is he? It's not his baby; it's someone else's, and that's why she also says she doesn't want to get married when he finally asks her, because he's not the father; it's not his. Da 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 da. I just get that dynamic. I don't think it was in there in the script, but it's the feeling that they give me when I watch it.
Yeah, a lot of indirect misogyny in this movie. I think it's intentional because I think we're not misogynist. I think that he's, we've just come through women's liberation by the time they made this movie. And that whole scene where she overhears them talking about whether or not they need to abort the baby, she's not even a part of it. It's three guys in another room talking about her kid. And, that's a decision she would make with Steven, but it's really makes, every time I hear that conversation, it makes me uncomfortable. And she gets pissed, and I don't blame her. And Peter is the one that recognizes it and says, she's right. You don't leave her without a gun. And you don't, and she's the first one that says, I want to learn how to fly that helicopter.
And I like the, and I don't know if it's in the version, if I had seen this version before, but that's not the only scene where she brings that up. There's like 3 separate scenes where she talks about the misogyny that they're actually showing her. I'm
not going to be your den mother.
I'm not going to be your den mother. It's a great scene, but there's another one where she says, I would have cooked something, but I don't have my pots and pans with me. And she's really,
most of that's in the same scene. Most of that is.
Scenes. Okay. You reminded me real quick. The best in my
so many.
In my opinion, the best 2 shots or shot structure as a director in this, the elevator opening, and suddenly, boom, one of our characters that we like so much is now
this guy,
the villain kind of thing, because he does destroy them. He leads all of them up to their sanctuary, which is terrible. But the other one I really like is they have this whole montage of them experiencing the mall, from wearing the jewels to doing all this. And then there's that boredom time of her ice skating and them cooking dinner and her learning to shoot and him hitting the tennis balls on the roof. And then the ball rolls over and bounces. And when it hits, boom, and there's zombies all around. And I went, that was a great moment.
It is.
It's kind of
like, you think it's great, but
for
no,
a minute we
still
forgot,
there.
But outside, boom, it's still there. And it really literally brings everything back home, sort of thing. It's really well. That's one of my favorite shots.
Well, I can't remember the line, surprisingly, but one of them, and it's probably Peter, has the line that this place is a tomb.
Yeah, it's a tomb. Yep.
Yeah. This is just one big grave, and we're in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just trying to look back through
it's heavily
notes.
implied.
Because we'll drone on forever, I know, but I'm just trying to look back through notes and stuff.
I can talk briefly about the cast. I mean, there were no alternatives. I'm going to give you a list of, people that were going to play the part. You mentioned the chemistry between Ken Foree and Scott Reiniger, who played Peter and Roger. I think they're amazing.
Yes.
Ken is the only one really, other than maybe Savini, that's gone on to have much of a film career that I know of. Ken is like Tony Todd. He got kind of typecast as a black man in horror movies. You will still see him if you watch film Shudder. which is about African American horror movies. Ken Foree and Keith David are both in it as commentators, as is Tony Todd. David Emge or Emge, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, plays Stephen. He was local. From what I understand, they took George Romero to a restaurant where he was waiting tables for him to get an audition.
Yeah, I had in one
read that
documentary I
somewhere.
watched, he and why do I struggle?
Gaylen.
Peter. No. Yeah. Reiniger or whomever.
Ken Foree.
No, okay.
Reiniger's the short one.
Okay. Roger Shortman. Okay. So Roger and
Played by
Stephen
Reiniger.
both
Yeah.
were actually local actors. And actually knew each other. And so did the interviewer and the interviewee in the first scene in the television studio. They both were local, community theater actors.
Got like the deluxe. I've got the deluxe box set, and it's got a commentary one. I mean, it's got commentary on every version, but on the Romero version, it is Romero, his wife. I think her name is Susan. I can't remember what her name is. And Tom Savini, and that's the best one. If you ever want to hear a commentary with this film, watch the one with Romero and Savini, because they know everybody. They're like, oh, that's so and so. Oh, that's so and so. But they're just pointing everybody out.
That's awesome.
Because a lot of them are people that they grew up with in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Okay. Gaylen Ross played Franny. I think she's fantastic. She might be up there with Foree as one of the best things in this movie. And Savini would be the only other person I would talk about cast wise. And that's just because, he was going to be attached to the original Night of the Living Dead, but he couldn't because he was in Vietnam. One of the reasons he became a special effects artist is because of the atrocities he experienced over there and saw. And that's why the gore in this movie looks so startling in places. And he did use a lot of real animal parts.
I was going to talk about the gore fest is that's real, like offal from the, those are
from a slaughterhouse that he was near. Yeah, exactly. He would go pick it up in the mornings and it stunk. It was gross.
You talked about Gaylen is Franny, and I saw in the research that this was really her first movie. She had not done
I think so
before this. And so she was so scared and so nervous, and Romero actually tapped into that for Franny, and it worked really well. I do think her strong scenes are strong. I think her pensiveness is good. I have in my notes trivia that, especially at this time in the late 70s, early 80s, this is one of the few horror movies where the heroine never screams in the entire movie. She never screams. And I went, that's a really cool little trivia bit.
And that was her too. Because there was one scene where he directed her to scream, and she said no. And he said, what? And she said, I don't want to be that girl. I want to be strong. And he never argued with her. He just let her go. Yeah,
something like, she's a journalist. Why would she scream right here? Kind of thing. Yeah, that's kind of cool. That's cool. That was her decision, or them working together. Romero, in every interview I see with him and or actors talking about him, they loved working with him. It's kind of like the, it's the opposite of doing The Abyss.
Because he's nice and he's not an asshole.
Yeah, well, and he works with them. He lets them kind of develop stuff together. He in one documentary I watched, he talked about a scene where he let them improvise the dialogue and do it because it was so much better than what he'd written to begin with. He said.
Yeah, I think the only person he said he had to rein in on this movie was Savini, because Savini wanted to do everything.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah. And most of that was effects.
He strikes you as that way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love Romero. I like his smaller movies too. If we end up doing the Romero movie, it'll probably be Creepshow, I would think.
I like Creepshow a lot. We should do that. That's a good one for variety and stuff.
because that's, I mean, yeah, I like creeps. So,
I think pluses and minuses of the movie, and then we could probably go to keys, I guess, or maybe some any awards, because I don't know if it won any. But man,
it doesn't
deserved a
have
bunch.
many. I can list them really quickly.
Uh-huh.
It was nominated for a Saturn Award in 1979 for makeup, and that was Tom Savini. But it got beat, as did Alien, by, guess what?
No, what?
First Bite.
What? What? Are you Love
Yeah.
at First Bite beat Alien and Dawn of the Dead?
I know it cracks me up because we're always like, oh, I love the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films because they always nominate these movies. Well, yeah, Love at First Bite beat Alien and Dawn of the Dead for makeup. So there you go.
It is a total crock of who did that tan man pay to get that award? Because there's no way. No.
Most of the awards are what I would call posthumous because they're like DVD awards for like DVD releases. However, it is on the list of 1001 movies you must see before you die. And rightly so.
It is the definitive zombie movie, in my opinion. The same way I say that, brain fart. What was
I don't know.
Andromeda Strain? Andromeda Strain is one of the definitive science fiction movies. This is the definitive zombie movie. All the tropes are there. Everything is in there.
Technically, it's in Night of the Living Dead too, but this enhanced it and brought it to more people and was in color.
But it's not just that. There's not as much commentary on the human condition in Night of the Living Dead as there is in this movie.
There's a lot. There is a lot. The whole in the basement stuff with Harry, what's his face?
Yeah.
Harry and his daughter and his wife. And then the whole, there's some racism going on in that house as well as outside that house too. But yeah. No.
Right, but there's so much more. I mean, racism is at the beginning of this too, and then there's also the social, the materialism, the bonded group, the fact that you've got more to fear from other humans than you do from these monsters.
You do. And the motorcycle gang's a perfect illustration of that.
Yeah, yeah.
As well as the crazy cop in the beginning.
Yep. What if I'm just checking my notes just to see if there's any little tidbits in it. Oh, okay. Shoot it, man. Shoot it in the head.
Shoot it in the head.
It's one of the best lines.
And when they're in the basement and Peter is shooting and his gun runs out. I never noticed before. He's crying. There's tears coming out of his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And Roger, steps in front of him and shoots the one that's going for his foot.
The screwdriver in the head, of course, we neglected
that's
to mention
my
that.
Key, man, because my character in my book is a fan of screwdrivers. They are the best weapons, especially the long ones.
And it's been in Walking Dead. It's been in several other. I mean, have taken the whole screwdriver. I've got the Muzak massacre because when they're just killing everybody with all that terrible music going on.
Let's touch on that a minute. You mentioned that the music is really bad. Goblin, the band that did the music for most of Argento's movies in the 70s, did the music for the European release of this. And Romero uses a little bit of that. Some of the better music in this movie is Goblin. The other stuff is him doing the cheap again. It's all canned stuff that's in public domain.
Yep.
That's why the music is kind of shitty in this movie.
Well, because he is just taking a piece and slapping it on, kind of like old short movies and films that we used to do and everything else. He's using library music rather than actual scored music. And you can tell when it works, like that whole boom, 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 da-da-dum, dum, dum. That works because it's timed to what's happening that we're watching, as opposed to just here's a song and people are all these cuts are happening and stuff. Doesn't
Or
work
like
at
when
all.
they're I mean, when it's good is like when it's a cut, like when they're flying and they cut to the mall and it just goes, duh.
Yeah.
That's great.
The music
Sunrise
at the
shot.
end, the sunrise with the strings and the helicopter flying away and all of that. That was great.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you know what the original end for this movie was? It was terrible.
I read something where everybody dies. It's Hamlet at the end, right?
Everybody dies. Peter shoots himself, and
Like he was planning with the Derringer.
stands, huh?
Like with the Derringer, he was going to kill himself. Okay.
And then Franny is on the helicopter and stands up and gets decapitated by the helicopter.
By accident?
I guess she was like
or
looking
on purpose.
for Peter, and she stands too high on the rim or the rudder, or whatever you call that step.
Yeah.
But, no one's that tall. It was just stupid. I don't know, but finally, when they were filming it, Romero was like, "No, I think we need a happy ending." He didn't end this one on a downer. He still gave the question, where are we going? Not much gas. Let's go. That's the downer, but they are alive at least.
Correct. And I have to admit, I like that. I would not, I don't think if I would have liked the movie with the downer ending, I mean, everybody did. However, I severely, and always have, questioned the whole feasibility of that whole ending. First of all, these zombies get up 2 different ladders to climb up on the roof.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
Makes no sense. Him being able to get all the way through all of them and up and out into the helicopter is like, no, probably not.
There's some cartoon stuff that.
Yeah, very, very cartoony there. So I question that. I do. I also, my other logic moment in this is they clear out this entire mall, do all these keys, lock every door, and start knocking people off, and then have a huge, we enjoy everything. I'm eating my olives in my little wheelbarrow. All of that stuff takes however long, but Roger doesn't die and doesn't transform.
That's all in 3 days.
Okay, so that's in 3 days. Yet Steven transfers in like a couple hours.
Well, Steven gets fucking annihilated, man. He gets attacked by like 5 of them in an elevator.
And again, that's one of those where, okay, he's got all these bites and all this attacking, and he can fend off and kick all of them out of the elevator. Yeah. No. But we give it. Again, so much of this movie doesn't work, but does work. And I buy it,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There was one other thing I was going to touch on. It wasn't music. Maybe it was the ending. Maybe that was it.
I've got Great Death for Flyboy. So yeah, that works.
Oh, that's that's exactly what I was going to say. It's the one thing that redeems him. I mean, I still wanted to see him dead because I hate him and he pisses me off. But the one thing that redeems him is that he's the one that finds the mall map and knows all the ventilation system and and he has the keys. And I mean, so he is the brains behind that. He's just not the brute force as far as getting the doors sealed.
Well, and we should comment and compliment Savini because that's one of my favorite makeup effects is when he gets shot in the arm. It looks very realistic. The blood actually works there because it cuts so quick and it goes all over him. And the way he plays that pain of being, being shot works for me. Yeah.
And you know how they did the bullets ricocheting off of the shaft? With a slingshot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was using a slingshot. I thought that was cool.
I do have a negative in that some of the editing is really choppy, and it may just be the version that I saw. But I think I remembered even in former times watching this that the editing doesn't work, and the audio dubbing is absolutely horrible in places. the gunshots all sound like you've got one gunshot that you're just repeating, no matter where you are in
It's
frame.
probably canned. It's probably
Yeah.
public domain.
Yeah, his audio dubbing is terrible. I mean, they've got revolvers and they're shooting, and then they pull up a rifle and they're shooting, and it's the same sound effect. And I'm
Yeah,
going,
or it's
yeah,
a small gun and it sounds like a cannon.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But go ahead.
I was going to do a little key that I don't know if you picked up on, because it's not in the version that we normally see. It's in the extended version, and it has to do with the music. And it's right as they're going to lock the gates. And they show the motorcycle guys outside the mall in front of the trucks. And there's a lot of stuff going on right there that's not in the movie that we saw of them, like Savini and whoever talking. The music that they are playing there is public domain music that is also used in the beginning of a movie we love.
I did not catch it then.
It is the same music from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh, the dun dun dun.
No.
That one?
The boom. At the very beginning. Boom.
Okay. Yeah.
Doom, doom, doom. Doom, 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 with the piano. That's in there, and it's called something. I have it. I wrote it down. It's
Make sure you put it in show notes so I can find it again too.
It's Pierre Herier's Ice Flow number 9. The same music used in the opening credits for Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Wow. I
had to go back and find it, because you can't really hear it that well unless you're looking for it, because they're all talking and stuff, and it's in the background.
Is that when he's going, do we go in tonight or do we wait for now, or that whole thing?
No, it's after they're not at the vantage point. They're actually right there in front of the doors.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And on the inside, Peter and Steven are locking the gates.
Okay.
So, because I was looking for it while they were locking the gates. I was like, I don't hear it. I don't hear it. And then when they were in front of it, I was like, oh, there it is. Now I hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little key right there. A little Python key anyway.
I mean, we've been doing keys the whole time, but do you have some others that are big standouts for you?
I mean, it's like a vampire movie. Every vampire movie. It's like a mad scientist movie. Every mad scientist movie. It's like an apes movie. It's like every planet. I mean, you've got the movies he directed: Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead. This one, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead. Which, honestly, Survival of the Dead's not that great. I do like Diary of the Dead though. It's sort of a found footage version. And he directed it. You've got the Walking Dead franchise. I mean, we have been inundated with the Walking Dead for a decade now.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's huge. Any movie where people are trapped, The Thing is a good example. Isolated.
My thing was Attack on Precinct 19, the
13, but yeah,
the 13, the Carpenter one, because
Assault
again,
on
it's your
Precinct.
isolation. We're all trapped, and then we have to develop our own kind of thing in there. That was one of the ones that I had. Yeah,
that's funny because both of us mentioned Carpenter movies, so he obviously likes that trope as well.
Well, that isolation structure works. The other one, what was it? I need to look at my notes and see if you have one, go on. I look for that.
Let's see. I mentioned that Peter was the first. It says he's the second person in the franchise to mention them as zombies. That apparently one of the reporters in Night of the Living Dead says it. I don't recall that, but maybe it's in the background and you just don't hear it that well.
No, I don't remember that.
This is the guy's name that I was trying to think of earlier. It's Joe Pilato, played Captain Rhodes in Day of the Dead. He appears briefly in the version we're aware of, but a lot in this extended version as a cop that is going on the lam at the same time that they're going on the lam with the helicopter.
Mm.
And I recognized him. I was like, oh yeah, that's that asshole, because he's an asshole in Day of the Dead.
Yes,
He gets eviscerated completely.
as he should.
Mhm.
Um, Thinking about commentary and stuff too, there's also he does this really. I think the pie fight and the attack by the motorcycle gang actually throws sympathy to the zombies,
Agreed.
and you
It's almost
suddenly
like
start.
they're defiling the dead by making
Oh,
fun of them.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're humiliating them,
Yeah.
kind of
There's
thing,
no respect in it at all.
and it further dehumanizes those villains, the motorcycle gang guys.
Absolutely.
Uh,
That is some depth right there.
yeah, and you don't see that in other zombie movies or anything else as much as you see it in Romero's kind of, he does the same thing, I think, in Day,
Yeah.
where you start to sympathize with these creatures over the humans, which we should be pulling for, but and some of us, like we just said, he gets eviscerated, and he should
Yeah.
have.
Mhm. Oh yeah, I'm not a big fan of the army in these movies at all. And let me tell you, one of the reasons I wrote the book I wrote is because so much of the genre fiction, so much of the zombie fiction that's out there is military. It's because it's all about guns. It's just, how many guns, how many weapons can you have? And
Yeah.
that's not why these stories interest me. These stories interest me because of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
What has more value? Why are you ridiculing the dead? You're worse than they are as far as a human being.
And
Yeah.
I will say, if you are watching or listening to us for the first time, this guy right here does have a novel, and it is awesome, especially if you like zombies. But
I
even if you
usually
don't
put it
like
in every show
zombie,
note.
even if you don't like zombie fiction, it's a great story. It's a survival story that's really good, and I highly recommend it.
Well, thank you very much.
But that's a key too, because there's some tropes in that bad boy.
Well,
There's a
I
screwdriver.
started off the episode with that. I mean, this movie's influenced me more than any other movie I can think of. I mean, I've had zombies on the brain for 40 years.
Oh yeah, they are your monster du jour sort of thing, or creature du jour. Yeah,
they are. I mentioned that Joe Pilato, who was in Day of the Dead as well. There is a rumor amongst horror fans that the policeman actually was Captain Rhodes, and that the backstory was that Rhodes was a full-time policeman and Army reservist.
Oh, okay. There you go. Just
That's
add
some
that
fan
backstory
fiction
in
for
there.
you right there.
Yeah. And of course, I have the key too of Raimi and the Evil Dead series of that. How do you combine humor and sometimes even slapstick humor with the horror and the gore and the unique storytelling, which I think they reference each other pretty well.
Absolutely. I've always said that the Evil Dead is kind of like a marriage of The Exorcist and Dawn of the Dead, because you've got basically possessed zombies. They're just a new kind of zombie.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that you could mention is Return of the Living Dead, which was written by his co-writer, Richard Russo, I believe.
Okay.
When he and Romero split, he went on to do his own sequel, somewhat to Night of the Living Dead, which ended up being Return of the Living Dead. That's the one where they eat brains.
Brains. Yeah.
But I still love that movie. I mean, there's room out there for different kinds of zombies. That's why I like fast zombies too. These are the definitive zombie for me, or this is the definitive movie for me, for sure. I had a piece of trivia here I thought was funny. The extras, of which there are many, and they still come online every day saying, "Hey, I was that zombie in Dawn of the Dead." They were reportedly given $1, a donut, and a T-shirt. A Dawn of the Dead
$1, a
T-shirt.
donut, and a T-shirt. Now, I had seen in another, I saw that, and I also saw another one that they were given $20, a T-shirt, and a lunchbox.
Oh, okay. Well, so
That's what
maybe
I had
none of
heard
these are
too.
true. I don't
So
know.
I don't know, but I know a lot of them were friends or friends of friends, family, all that. Come out, we're filming tomorrow night, that kind of stuff. And I
Mhm.
also read that it was freezing cold, that it was like
Well,
really,
it was
really
Christmas in
cold
Pittsburgh.
in
So yeah.
Philadelphia. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I have
The
kind of an extended key,
yeah.
um, Rubenstein, who was one of the producers of this, in addition
Hmm.
to Dario.
Hmm.
He went on and did a bunch of stuff in television and a bunch of stuff with Romero.
Right. He did Tales from
So
the Dark Side.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that till I saw his name in the
Hmm.
credits and went, wait, I remember that boo and the door opening and all that.
Terrible video effects. Yeah.
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 But he did Creep Show as well with Romero.
Yeah, he partnered with Richard Rubenstein for a lot of stuff. I think they had a company. I get all of his companies confused. When he did Night of the Living Dead, it was Latent Image Company, and I think I remember seeing their name.
Yeah.
So that was one of his earlier. That's the one he was like partners with the guy that played Harry Cooper and his wife when they did Night of the Living Dead, I think. Anyway, I don't know.
But he went
Um,
on and he did The Stand, the one, the television series.
oh, that's
He
cool.
did, he did um, um, uh, Night Flyer and Thinner, which were Stephen King stuff. He
Okay.
did Langoliers, and
Ugh.
he also produced the new, the one that came out, this year of The Stand. He was
The
one of
one
the
that's
executive
currently
producers.
running.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So he's had a huge horror career and gone on, and all started because of Dawn of the Dead.
Mhm.
Actually, Martin, I think he produced Martin, didn't he?
He could
Um,
have. I mean,
or did
Romero
something with
did
Romero because of Romero.
between Night of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead, he did The Crazies, Season of the Witch, Martin. I mean, he had at least 3 movies, maybe more, in
Hmm.
between them that were
Okay.
like little indies.
Yeah. Cool.
This movie has a body count of 93.
Wow. I didn't know that.
17 humans and 76 zombies.
76 zombies. That should be like a that should be like a goal people have. Can you top 76 zombies?
Right, right. I'm just looking over my notes just to see if
Really,
I'm
because
reading it.
I think John Wick only has like 72 kills in the whole movie. So that's kind of interesting. Huh. I did not know that. That's pretty good.
It's the most profitable film in the series, even though it was released as unrated. And you remember that story too, because they wanted to make it X-rated.
Right. Well, Rubenstein agreed to release it unrated, even though
Mhm.
he would lose advertising dollars and certain theaters wouldn't carry it and he couldn't advertise in certain places,
Right.
that sort of thing. But essentially word of mouth, I assume, and video release did really well for it.
And midnight movies. I'm sure it played a lot of midnight movies.
Oh, I'm sure it did. I think I
Yeah.
even watched one.
I'm sure that we saw it together, but I know we've seen it
At least
on
once.
video. Yeah, at least once. It says what you were saying, although on all advertising and trailers, there was a disclaimer that in effect read, while there was no explicit sex in the movie was of such a violent nature that no under 17 would be admitted. So I guess if it's unrated, they have to still say, hey, unless you're this old, you can't come in.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but I think a lot of that added to the mystique of it too, probably.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I wanted to see it. It's because they were saying I shouldn't see it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just like a banned book, man. Buy that sucker and read it. Find
That is
it.
like now. Extremely
But that,
influential. I mean,
I guess we should be winding it up. We've run a little over, but I expected that.
mm-hmm.
I really don't, I can't say again, I can't say how much this movie means to me. This is the cherries on my cake for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
And
So,
it's
and
a
that is why
huge
it is here.
influence. It is an iconic horror film. It should be on that 1001 list. It should be on any zombie list because, but also I think it could be studied for character interaction and structure of showing that, like you said, that isolation and survival motif kind of structure and storytelling. How do we get our audiences invested in these characters and then throw all this crap at them and still invest in them through the end, even though the end is bleak? There's not a really quote happy ending.
And throw all the social commentary in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could write a master's thesis on it.
Yep.
I probably already have in my head. All right. Well, we would like to thank everyone out there for listening to us here on Johnny Has the Keys, or watching us if you are on YouTube. Be sure and subscribe and ring that bell. If you would like to reach out to us, you can reach us on our website or on Facebook. We would love to hear from you. We are in the process of gathering selection for next season. So if you would like to suggest some movies, we would love to hear them. And join us on Patreon, where we also have additional shows as well as free and paid material. We would love to have you there as well. And I think that's all I've got for today, David. Anything
I think
else?
that's it. Great job. Thank you guys for listening. And Tim, we'll talk at you next time.
Don't forget, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
They will. Look.
Peace out.
There's one now. Bye.
Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.